And we are back. Once again, you're on with the Black Comic Lords for our Friday night happy hour, late night happy hour, Wakanda Whiskey and Blurredom. I'm your host, Paul, and with me is my partner, Marc, as usual.
What's going on? What's going on?
And we're here to talk about whiskey, Black Panther comics, and whatever else that we're into.
Well, not everything.
Well,
It's
within reason.
a family show,
It's
supposedly.
a family show. This is the PG-13 version.
Right, right.
All right. So what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Last week was
Well,
Morehouse
I got the
Homecoming.
wrong background on. This is Wakanda Whiskey and Blurredom. Where's our dude?
Oh, there you go.
There he is.
All right. But no, last week was Morehouse Homecoming. That's why I wasn't participating last week. It was a very, very good time. Weather was perfect. The only thing missing was my friend who came up last year. We had a ball in 22. Was hoping to have the same thing in 23, but work schedules didn't allow it. But had a good time nonetheless. But I am back, ready to sip on another new whiskey for me and talk specifically about Black Panther comic books. Today, we're going to do something kind of different in that we're just going to focus on old Black Panther comic books. And the reason why, for myself at least,
I don't like to
on
use the term
Wednesday,
old as much as classic.
I mean, they are older books. They're considered classics, greats, whatever, but they are in fact older books. And one of the reasons why is on Wednesday when comic books drop, for myself at least, of the pools that I have, I didn't have any black comic books like at all. Like nothing that I collect was a black centric book, either creator or character. So when because of that happened, Paul and I made the decision to just go back into dig into the crates, as they say, and start talking from pretty much the beginning of T'Challa in comic books. Now we're not going to start talking about his first appearance in Fantastic Four, but we will talk about his second, third, and fourth pretty much individual runs, excluding the Kirby, God rest his soul, the Kirby run. That run was pretty gosh darn bad. But we're going to be discussing his Jungle Action, Priest, and Hudlin runs. But before we do that, the second word in our title is whiskey. And about 2, 3 months ago, Paul and I made the decision to start focusing on black owned whiskey distilleries. So over the past, couple of months when we've been doing this, we've had whiskeys from black creators because this is pretty much a predominantly black space. So we want to we want to highlight those people out there who are making whiskey as well as comic books. So for myself this week, I am trying one called Brothers Bond. I don't know if you can see that right there. I think Paul can pull it up. Now the liquor, damn, that smells good. One of the liquor stores that I go to, they actually have a so-called black section, like on one of the shelves. On the top of the shelves, all the whiskey that they have there are black, created by black distilleries. And I've tried most of them at this point since we've been doing this. So there's only a few more that are out there. It's not like we have a plethora of black owned distilleries, but there are a few more. Paul last week tried these, no, about 2 weeks ago. Paul tried the Scottie Pippen whiskey that they had in the liquor store that I go to. That thing was like $80. I'm like, okay, it'll stay there. What I'm trying now, this Brothers in Bond was about $45. It
Now, this
has
is
a
supposed
very
to be a black-owned whiskey, but I'd be
here's
remiss
the
in
thing,
pointing out that their advertisement doesn't seem to have any black folk in it.
and I get that, but we don't create their marketing, so I don't know what they're trying to do, but
They're trying to sell
they,
some whiskey. It sounds
right,
like.
but I don't know if we need to pull up that list again. There's a list out there that has the black owned whiskey distilleries or whiskey owners on it. And but I don't know if my guy lied to me or not, but he told me that this is black owned. I'm like, okay, you sure? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, it smells good. Okay, this is kind of smooth. This somewhat reminds me of a Jameson, but not as good as Jameson. For those who don't know, Jameson is an Irish whiskey. And it's been my experience that Irish whiskeys tend to be a little bit sweeter than your bourbons or, most scotches that you'll have. Um, it's not really that complex. It's got a pretty decent nose. It has a pretty decent smell to it. I detect notes of floral, vanilla, maybe some caramel. It's not bad.
On a scale of 1 to 5, what would you give it?
On a scale of 1 to 5. On a scale of 1 to 5, I'd probably give it probably about a 3. And I just dropped an ice cube in it. Now, one of the things that's interesting about whiskey is that when you add water or an ice cube, it changes the complexity of the whiskey. So I just added me a little ice cube in it, let it get settled in there, and see what it does. What I'm drinking on, it says it's 80 proof. So, okay. This is something that you wouldn't mind sharing. As I said, it's less than $50 a bottle. There are whiskeys out there that you're not going to want anybody, if you have company, you're not going to want to have anybody taste it except yourself. But this is something that I wouldn't mind sharing and probably make an old fashioned with it at some point. Let's see what we got with the ice cube.
What's up to the people in the chat? H&H Comics, Kenneth Gardner, behind the scene. What's going on, Dion? Derek, nice to see y'all here.
Okay. It's not, I'll be honest with you, it's not great, but it's not bad. I'll put it like that. It's like right in
That
the
does
middle.
not sound like a resounding endorsement.
It's not a resounding endorsement, but it's not one that I would say, oh my God, don't ever spend your money on this. Because, of course, everybody's palate is different.
Amir says, Paul, my brother, that BSB was fire. Good suggestion. Look, this BSB is crazy, crazy sweet. However,
boxes, right?
I will say this will be my go-to for Christmas. I'm going to get me some nice eggnog, regular eggnog, and pour this in there. This will be perfect for your holiday festivities. Pour in some eggnog or some coquito and have yourself a good old time. All right, so for me, I picked up a whiskey with a fancy name called Dublasi. It's very pretentious sounding. I have no idea what to expect. But it says,
list?
What?
How did you hear about it from that list?
Yeah, just from the list. When creating the inspiration behind Dublasi, we premium spirits. What? Damn, there's a typo in their ad. I hate that. They left out the word used. Should say, we use premium spirits for those that celebrate life's special moments with a toast of a glass. Here at Dublasi, we handcraft our award-winning whiskey, bringing together complex notes for a balanced and flavorful pour. Dublasi is made from the best natural ingredients locally found in Florida's harvest land. This is local. This is a local whiskey right here in Florida. All right. Then matured and blended under the guidance of our master distiller. Our spirits feature hints of vanilla, complemented with all natural spices, creating an authentic, unique, and unrivaled taste profile. You can truly enjoy Dublasi neat, as a cocktail, or on the rocks. It is truly perfect when celebrating life's special moments. All right. And unlike Marc's whiskey, mine has black folk in the advertisement.
Okay, well, first off, Marc didn't create that whiskey. Marc don't own that whiskey. Marc was told that whiskey is made by black folks. So
you got bamboozled. Who told you? Was it a brother who told you that?
No, he was the liquor store guy. And he hasn't steered me wrong before. Like, he told me about Bro Brothers and Greenwood whiskey and a couple of others that I've had before. So,
my brother, I think you were steered wrong and run amok.
That looks
bamboozled,
like,
if you will.
That looks like God, what's that dude's name?
The dude with his own talk show, right? The former football player?
No. Well, I don't know who that is, but he looks like the dude Bentley Farnsworth. That's who he looks like. He looks like Bentley Farnsworth.
Oh, you just saying that because of the suit and the pinky ring.
No, he's got that look.
He got a diamond crusted pinky ring. I mean, that's all I got. That's all I need to know. All right, so DuBlasi, I'm gonna give this thing a try. First, let's pop this thing open. Let's give it a pour. You do smell the vanilla. Tinge of caramel. And there's some citrus in there. All right, let's give it a try. It's smooth. There's no burn at all. What is this? 35% alcohol. So it's not very
Not very potent.
it's not very potent. But you know what it reminds me of? What do you call it? There's honey. I taste honey. It kind of reminds me of, like, you know, those people that make lemonade with honey? It kind of reminds me of that. But with vanilla.
I've never seen that in the store that I can recall.
This is delicious. It's a good. You don't need to mix it with anything. Perfectly good neat. I would dare say you probably don't even need to add an ice cube to this. It's because it's only 35% alcohol volume. There's not any burn on it, really.
How much was it?
I don't remember. I don't look at price tags.
That's not true, but okay.
But yeah, I would suggest this neat. This is a nice sipping whiskey, and I think this is one that you know, anyone would enjoy. So that is DuBlasi. Let's check out our comments here. Strahan, that's who I was trying to think of. That's who I thought the dude looked like. Thank you, Derek.
Michael Strahan.
Michael Strahan. To me, I think the two best run on Black Panther is by Christopher Priest and Reggie Hudlin. Hopefully, Evel Ewing's run T'Challa could be the third best. That's what we're here to talk about. Mr. DC Comics, what's up? Welcome. Why is Africa or African mythology always left out of entertainment around the world? Anime, movies, TV. Why is Africa always ignored? Well, that's kind of a deep question, dude. I don't think it's ignored. It's not promulgated as much as other media, obviously. But you know what's interesting? Nollywood. The proliferation of media that we're getting from Nigeria. The big dog, OG Richard Wright, the Panther Hearted, with the super chat. Thank you, sir. I know I've got a super chat video somewhere, but Derek likes to play with us by hiding the super chat videos all over the place so no one but himself can find it. But to you, sir, I say thank you.
Donation. It's a donation. I thought it was the trash. Don't be hitting on me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Donation.
Has to put away the booze and get to the comics. So that's what we'll do. So, you know, this is Wakanda whiskey and blurredom. So we're always going to start with our man, the Black Panther. And I don't mean TJ. I don't mean Shuri. I mean the Black Panther. T'Challa. brother
So
right there.
EJ, as Paul calls him, I refer to him as the Haitian bastard child. As far as I'm concerned, he's a Skrull, and I will never acknowledge that kid as the real T'Challa's offspring. Never, ever in life will I.
Derek says lemonade with honey. Is that similar to raisins to potato salad? Come on, bro. What up, OG Rich? All right. So, as Mark said before, what we're going to try to do, I don't know how long we're going to try to do this, but we're trying something new. We picked out our 3 favorite Black Panther runs. I say favorite, but I think from an objective standpoint, I could easily say the 3 best Black Panther runs of all time.
Correct.
I think Mark and I are experienced enough on these comics to be fairly accurate in these assessments. That the very 3 best Black Panther runs of all time, in no particular order, Don McGregor, Christopher Priest, and Reginald Hudlin.
Now, Paul says no particular order, and I've said in this space before, for myself personally, the 3 best Black Panther writers, excluding his appearances in Avengers and elsewhere, but just in his own title for myself, my 3 favorite are Reginald Hudlin, number 1, Don McGregor on Jungle Action, number 2, and I guess I'll say Christopher Priest, number 3, in comparison to what else is out there, because the other ones, Dr. Ewing may very well move up to the number 3 spot, but what we have thus far, those are my personal top 3.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, our fingers crossed on Eve Ewing's run. So let's start with, as I said, in no particular order.
Well, let's go by age. Start with the oldest first, which would
That's
be
what I was going to say. In no particular order, we're going to put it in. Well, I guess that. Yeah, you're right. No particular order would seem to indicate not an order. So, give me 1 second. Sorry about this. I hate when things don't cooperate.
While Paul is doing that, make sure that you get the link that you were watching this on and share that on your socials. Share that on your Facebooks, share it on your Twitters, share it on your Snapchats if you can. But just go ahead and share it so more eyes can join us. But yes.
Yeah, I mean, please take a second if you haven't already. Hit the like button. Number of you watching right now, go ahead and hit the like button. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're already subscribed, great. Make sure you also hit the notification bell. Little bell down there. So when we have videos, even if you haven't watched the advertisements, you'll get a notification that we're on and watch us. If you would, please. Thank you. Now, Richard asked, what is the criteria for these lists? The criteria for this list is that Mark and I are Black Panther fans. We've been reading them for over 20 years, and we consider ourselves authorities on the subject. What?
Right.
What's up, Pericles? Thank you for joining us. Now, this came out in 1973. Context here. Jungle Action Comics, there were 2 versions. The volume 1, this is actually volume 2. Volume 1 of Jungle Action Comics was actually done under Atlas Comics, which dates back, which is Marvel's predecessor, and dates back to, I think, 1954 or 57, somewhere around there. Those comics were specifically comics involving usually white savior tropes. The whole Tarzan trope of you bring the white man into Africa, deepest, darkest Africa, and because he is the white man and is just naturally superior, he can do things that the natives, indigenous populations that have been there for tens of thousands of years cannot do. He can command the beast. He can swim better. He can chuck a spear better. He can kill animals with his bare hands and lead the people
He's better in every conceivable way.
in every
That's
considerable way.
or
He is
white.
superior to the indigenous black people of Africa.
You know another person who's like that? The Phantom. Now I like that movie with Billy Zane from like
Yeah.
1994, but he falls into that same vein of you have the white savior coming to, as you said, the deepest, darkest Africa, and all of a sudden he's running things. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the point. T'Challa was the opposite of that concept, right? I mean, T'Challa was a king. He's a brilliant scientist. He's highly educated throughout the world. He's got more money than anybody. Um, he doesn't worship your God. He worships his own God. Um, and he's fine with that. And he's noble. Now, you could make the argument he's kind of the savage noble hero thing, but I mean, whatever. The fact remains, he was a very different character. And I think Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, when they created the character in 1966, when they recognized, you know what, we should have a black character that black people can look up to because they're part of our viewership as well, our readership, and we don't have a character they can look up to. So they literally made, to their credit, they literally made a character that was the opposite of many of the stereotypes that black people have been associated with black people.
Let me interject real quick.
Yeah,
One
please.
thing, one thing that is a misconception for a lot of people is that some folks think that the Black Panther comic book was playing off the Black Panther social organization from Oakland of the 60s, and that is incorrect. The Black Panther character was dropped around April or May of 1966, which means that it would have been made March or April of that year. The Black Panther Civic Organization was not founded until October 1966. So one had absolutely nothing to do with the other. In fact, there was a Black Panther, I want to say, tank regiment during World War II. So the name Black Panther has oftentimes been associated with us as Black people. So one thing didn't have anything to do with the other, even though they share the same name and came into creation roughly around the same time.
Richard asked, why was I talking about Jungle Action 1 through 4? I wasn't just talking about Jungle Action 1 through 4. I was actually talking about Jungle Action 1 through 4 of that volume 2, which is what this issue is a part of. I was also mentioning context of the original Jungle Action 1 dating back to the 1950s when Marvel was called Atlas Comics. The context being what a major shift it was to have this white savior trope replaced with this black superhero who is literally the opposite of the white savior trope in every respect. So I thought that was an interesting radical change in what Jungle Action actually meant. So, we go to this story. Don McGregor is given the task of bringing these characters to life.
Well, let me just interject something real quick. This is not a Don McGregor story. This issue of Jungle Action #5 was originally told in the Avengers. Like it was Avengers #62.
Right.
And this was written by a man by the name of Roy Thomas. So this is not an original story by Don McGregor. If I'm not mistaken, issue #6 is what begins the original Black Panther stories in the Jungle Action title. This is a reprint. Not only can you see this story verbatim in Avengers #62, you can also find it in Marvel Super Action #23.
Which is the reprint.
Right. So this story is, in several different books. But Don McGregor pops up in Jungle Action, I want to say, in issue #6 for clarity's sake.
Yeah. So what I was saying is was Don McGregor's given the task of writing this story after this reintroduction to the character by Roy Thomas, his previous work in Avengers. Um, T'Challa joined the Avengers in issue 52, or technically 51. Um, and they didn't know anything about the guy. I mean, we're like almost a dozen issues in. He's been on the team for almost a year, and nobody knows anything about T'Challa. They just finished battling these frost giants. Um, and so T'Challa's like, all right, well, let me just bring my little airplane over here. And they're amazed that he has this technology. And I thought that was kind of cool, is that they're demonstrating this technology that he has.
And
Um,
what's crazy though is around this time, the Avengers still would have had Quinjets.
right.
And the fact that this black dude had his own thing, that they were amazed by that, should kind of say a little bit about the time period.
Well, T'Challa's the one who invented their Quinjets.
Mhm.
And in fact, if you look at the design of the ship, the round sort of design and these wings, it's very similar to what the Quinjets look like.
To me, this doesn't look like the Quinjets that I'm familiar with. You know what this looks like? This looks like Aladdin's lamp. When you scroll up, you'll see a shot from overhead, and it looks just like Aladdin's lamp. So it's not as bulky as what I'm accustomed to Quinjets looking like. Where is that image? I do like that.
I like this line here. It says, "We're all a bit in the dark about old T'Challa, pal. Who knows? Maybe this is the day we learn all about our African Avenger." And then Vision says, "All Avengers must respect their fellows' right to privacy. Still, we need to know where you're taking us." And he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you where we're going because it's a secret. But we are bound for the land of the Wakandas." And much like the scene in the Black Panther film, he flies in and goes through a secret entrance to find Wakanda. And then he shows the jungle, the techno jungle, right? This is the one scene of the film that never really got done, was the fact that Wakanda is supposed to have this whole techno super advanced jungle underground. And quite honestly, it hasn't been explored all that much in many of the other Black Panther comic book runs either.
It does look
Excuse
like
me.
Aladdin's lamp, though.
It does look a little bit like Aladdin's lamp.
Yeah.
But what was interesting also is the fact that one thing I didn't like, let me point that out first, in the early depictions of the Wakandans, because remember, we're still coming off this whole jungle trope thing, is the fact that the Wakandans still, they're wearing their loincloths, but they've got guns. This is different. This is a departure that you see later on with the priest runs and Hudlin runs, where they're sort of depicted in more advanced science fiction, futuristic looking type of clothing.
Right.
This
And they're
is
not using ballistic weapons.
right.
They have like ray guns and things of that nature. But I still think that they're wearing, tribal garb. But as you're pointing out, they're not running around in loincloths and everything.
Yeah, they're underground. It's probably air conditioned. They might get a little cool, a little chilly, running around with just the loincloth, no t-shirt. You think they give the Wakanda some t-shirts at least?
When I watched the Black Panther movie, Daniel Kaluuya's character never resonated with me. Now, understand, this Black Panther book, I've probably not read this book easily in 30 years. That's not hyperbole. I probably haven't picked this up other than moving it from one place to another in about 30 years. I've not read the story. So Daniel Kaluuya's character to me was somewhat new, but he dates back in the Avengers 62. He was in this issue. And so the Wakabi character was not something that was created for the screen. He was created in the books and has been around for an extremely long time. And one other thing that, that's one of the good things about us doing this now is that although I have some tertiary knowledge of the Black Panther due to my years and years of reading him, once I've read this stuff, I've not picked it up again. And so it's good to go back and see these stories and see these characters again and putting them into modern context. So this is Wakabi right there that Black Panther is talking to.
First appearance of Wakabi was in this issue.
Well, issue 62.
Of Avengers.
Yeah.
Avengers.
So that would be Oscar winner Daniel Kaluuya's character.
But right off the rip, the Jungle Action series, the thing that separates it from any of the other runs to this point was Wakanda was never really explored. No one really knew anything about Wakanda. They never saw any other Wakandans really. And so you had a lot of introduction of Wakandan characters that were real characters. They weren't just like background characters. Wakabi had a role. Taku was introduced. He had a large role. Zuri had a role. These are characters that formed the nucleus around T'Challa.
Zuri is basically Forrest Whitaker's character from the movie.
Yeah, just a lot more diesel. The other thing is, this was our introduction to M'Baku, the man-ape, who, interestingly enough, was left as regent of Wakanda in T'Challa's stead as he left to go be an Avenger. One of the things I made a comment about a few weeks ago was the fact that the whole Civil War thing, people said, well, I hated the Coates run because he had this war between Wakandans and stuff. I'm like, there's always been war within Wakanda. There's always been vying for power, that concept of vying for power. Because remember, they're not a warlike race, but they're a warrior race. A warrior people, I should say, not race. A warrior group of people that literally choose their leader based on combat, right? Ritual combat. So that's just part of their culture. And M'Baku's not choosing to confront T'Challa directly and openly challenge him for the throne, he chooses to scheme his way onto the throne, which sort of makes him more of a villain-like character. Unlike Killmonger, who used a combination, which we'll talk about later, of using schemes to sort of disrupt T'Challa's support and then go into open combat challenge of T'Challa's reign.
And here's the thing, though. Wakandans are humans, and throughout human history, conflict is part of the nature of humanity.
Right.
We are a violent creature by nature for whatever reason. So the Wakandans fighting amongst themselves is not anything different than has happened throughout European history, Chinese, Japanese history. We are a warring people. Humanity is always at war. There has never been a time in the history of humanity that there hasn't been conflict between peoples, be it based on race, be it based on religion, be it based on resources. We are always fighting each other. So that's nothing new at all. And the Wakandans shouldn't be viewed as any different either. I like the way who would have been a great M'Baku back in the day if this was made in the 70s? The brother
70s?
In the 70s. The brother who played James Evans from Good Times. Tell me
John Amos?
John Amos, yes. I
think he would have made a better Zuri.
I could have seen him as M'Baku back in the day. I definitely think about the movie Beastmaster. You remember the Beastmaster that starred Marc Singer, probably like around 1983 or whatever. And he was walking around in a loincloth or whatever. In fact, he played the old Kunta Kinte in Roots.
Right.
He would have been a great M'Baku because he was big and solid. So yeah, I could see that. I could definitely have seen it. But you say Zuri?
Yeah, I could see him more as Zuri.
But see, here's the thing. He was young back then. He was in his 30s. I envision Yuri as being a more mature individual, somebody in their 40s or 50s, if not older, because he was a friend of T'Chaka. So he would have been significantly older. Back then, John Amos was, 36, 37. So yeah, I could have seen him as M'Baku.
The other thing we get from this issue is the fact that there are other religions, even though some of them may be forbidden. The white gorilla religion. Um, he notes that it was T'Challa himself that forbade them to practice that religion. So you had a lot of world building in Jungle Action. That's what I think Jungle Action really deserves the most credit for, was the amount of world building that they did in that run. It was also the first time, talking about gods, the first depiction that you see in Wakanda of their god Bast. This is the first time you see a depiction of Bast in Black Panther comics. I
Well,
didn't say Marvel comics in general because I think there was a prior comic of Bast sort of in the background mentioned. I want to say it was in like a Thor comic, if I'm not mistaken. But this is the first really sort of full time you've ever seen Bast in the comic in Marvel.
yeah. And then you have the ape god. Now in the movie they called him Hanuman, Hanuman,
Hardeman.
Hanuman. But here's what's interesting. Paul and I have mentioned this before. For the longest time, I at least never thought that any member of the Jabari tribe could be the quote unquote Black Panther because they worship the ape god. But the 4 or 5 issue limited series Wakanda series, in the back of it, it had a list of some of the individuals who came before who were the quote unquote Black Panther. And so they've somewhat retconned it so that a member of the Jabari tribe in the past had in fact been a member or had actually been the Black Panther. The way I always used to say it is you can't expect somebody who's a Muslim to become Pope because obviously that is Catholicism. And that's the way that I've always viewed the Black Panther mantle, right? Somebody can be the ruler of Wakanda even if they are not a member of the Black Panther cult, but they cannot be the Black Panther. But they've since retconned that to change it so that anybody who obviously becomes the Black Panther is doesn't matter where they come from.
I
How
like
about
this comment
Yasuko?
by KK Lager. How about Yaphet Kotto as M'Baku?
That could
That
work.
dude, that would have been a dope M'Baku.
Oh, from the Live and Let Die movie. Um, what was his name? Jeffrey something.
Like
He
Sinclair,
no,
something
I
like
don't
that.
think it was Sinclair, but he was
The,
in.
the bald, the bald dude.
Yes, he was in the 7 Up commercials back in the 70s and 80s. Had it, never will. Um,
He's either Haitian or Trinidadian, I believe.
he was an Islander, but I could have seen him as potentially M'Baku as well. In fact, if you saw the
Jeffrey
movie,
Holder. Pericles still.
that's it.
Jeffrey Holder.
Thank you, Jeffrey Holder. I could have seen him in it. R.I.P. Rich. Oh, yeah. Don't even get me started on that. Yes. For those who don't know, the gentleman who played Shaft, Richard Roundtree, who a lot of people say was the first Black action hero, he died about a week, 2 weeks ago at the age of 82, 83. Something that a lot of people don't know is that back, I want to say in the 90s, Richard Roundtree had breast cancer. And that was the first time I had ever heard of a male getting breast cancer. I never knew that that could happen. But yeah. Excuse me. I apologize. But yeah, so this was a good issue. Um, for the longest time, I was confused because I had Jungle Action and I had read it. When you're collecting, you pick up something here and there, whatever the case may be. And then I also had, you know, Marvel Super Action. I'm like, wait a minute, why do I know that story? I know I've seen this somewhere before. And so it took me a long time to realize that these two stories were the same story. But what's interesting also about this is if you watched what was the last Avengers cartoon? What was it called? Was it Earth Spark
Avengers
Zero?
Assemble.
Avengers Assemble. So the second half of Avengers Assemble was basically a T'Challa story. That's all it was, and it was great. But as I sit here,
Panthers
Panthers
Quest.
was it? Say it again.
Was it Panthers Quest or Panthers?
Yeah, I think it was Panther's Quest. I think it was Panther
Yeah.
Quest. And
Written by Jeffrey Thorne.
right. The second half of that cartoon was nothing but T'Challa playing on the fact that the movie had come out and playing on that popularity. But as I sit here and think about it, a lot of those images seem to have come from this book because the man-ape was in that cartoon, and T'Challa and Shuri were going up against him, even though Shuri had not yet been invented when this came out. And some of the iconography, if I know I'm saying that wrong, from these panels seem to have made their way into that animated cartoon.
Right. Right. Just tremendous run. The artwork by John Buscema. I mean, that's just one of Marvel's best artists of all time is John Buscema.
I love that Panther outfit right there. Go back to that one page. Go back one.
I can't do that.
The one that you just had up, where he landed on all fours.
But you see them battling in this techno jungle. It was a bloody battle. It was certainly a more intense battle than what you saw in the movie.
Here's the thing. Basically, what the point that I was getting at is that this is by far my favorite Black Panther outfit, even though it was just strictly a cloth outfit. They weren't at this time that I recall. They weren't saying anything about his uniform or habit being anything other than cloth, having any type of vibranium in it. I really love this outfit. Plus, with the short cape that he had on, I really love that outfit.
Check out this one panel. This brought up a conversation you and I had once. M'Baku's talking about your vaunted panther image, decadent symbol of your weak-kneed rule. Soon it will topple upon you, and with its fall, darkness returns again to the primeval jungle. Right? And so you and I assumed that, even if M'Baku had defeated T'Challa and became king of Wakanda, he would simply just be king of Wakanda, the man-ape, not the Black Panther. And apparently, based on what was revealed in the Wakanda series, that's not the case.
Right. That's what I just said. That's exactly what I was saying. But here's the thing. Part of the reason why we felt that way is based on this that was dropped back in the 70s. Because when M'Baku specifically was trying to take over, he was trying to do away with the the totem of the Black Panther cult and raise his own mantle up, which was the ape god. Are you gonna read the comments, or you just?
Wayne Ashford asked, by the way, does anyone have a copy of the board game Wakanda Forever? I've played it with my family a few times and enjoyed it. Elbow cough.
No, I don't have anything Wakanda Forever.
No. I think damn it, Derek. We really got to have a discussion about organizing these things, man, if you're watching. Because
oh no, 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 no.
Speaking of Daniel Kaluuya, the great movie Get Out, that should have won him an Oscar. That movie was phenomenal.
But yeah, jungle action. Next time we do this, we can get into Don McGregor's actual beginning of the run.
Right.
Where the great Killmonger was introduced.
And those are unique stories. This was obviously, as I've been saying, not a unique story, but the Don McGregor uh, work or run on Jungle Action are all unique stories. And his prose, I was reading, I was filling some holes in my collection recently, and I picked up another Jungle Action. I can't remember what issue it was, but the prose and the descriptions that Don McGregor would give to Wakanda and his verbiage, it was just amazing. And I was like, the last writer before Dr. Ewing could never. It was just amazing. And that's why Don McGregor will always be number two. I don't think anybody will supplant the top two. Maybe at some point 20, 30 years from now. But as of right now, those are my top two with uh what's my man's name? Hudlin and McGregor. It's like 1A and 1B actually.
So we're now going to go to my personal favorite, Black Panther run. And that's the run of Mr. Christopher Priest. Why is this my favorite run? Well, if you've watched me on this program at any time, you know the influence this book had on me. I got to meet Dennis Cowan when I was in college and hang out with him for a weekend. We went to the comic store and he asked me flat out why I wasn't a Black Panther fan. And I was like, he's kind of a D-list character. He doesn't really get much shine. And he's like, no. And then he handed me like his run. So here I am. I'm telling the guy who drew Black Panther, I never really was feeling the character. He's like, here, you need to buy this. We're in the comic store. It's like, here, you need to buy this. I bought the run. It's like, it's kind of dope. Then a few years later, Christopher Priest comes out with this run. I can tell you it unabashedly, from the very first issue, this issue, I was hooked. From this issue, Black Panther skyrocketed to being my favorite favorite superhero of all time, ahead of everybody. I loved this issue. I loved Christopher Priest's writing. I loved the fact that he used Everett K. Ross as a literary device to sort of re-examine who the Black Panther is from the outsider's perspective. I thought that was brilliant because it allowed the book to have a universal appeal. For those people that were not familiar with the character, using Everett K. Ross as the main narrator of the story allowed people to view it from that sentiment. Like, I don't know who this guy is. And you look at everything he does, and you're looking at it through Everett K. Ross's voice and analyzing him from that perspective. And I think that allowed the book to have this sort of mainstream appeal as well, because your average white guy is probably reading this with the same sort of attitude of Everett K. Ross. Like, who the hell is this guy? Why is he dressed all in black? Who are these Amazonian chicks hanging out with him? Like that same voice. And he made Black Panther cool. And the other thing about the totality of Priest Run, because it was a long run. I think in actuality, Priest Run was the longest Black Panther run of all time.
62 issues.
In the reality, over those 62 issues, he covered a lot. If you mention what you liked in any other run, whether you say world building of Wakanda, like you had in the McGregor run, whether you say, making him more prominent or having a love life and showing black super love, like you had in the original Hudlin run, whether you're saying Afrofuturism from the Coates run, whether you're saying exploration of Wakanda, from the McGregor run, or even the limited series run, Priest had it all. His run had all of that. His run was the first one after the Marvel Team Up 100 that showed the first time Black Panther and Storm met. His run was the first one to sort of bring that up and say, yeah, these people could be kind of a thing.
I don't remember
You
that.
know?
Do you recall? Do you have any
I
recollection?
do recall that he was still dating Monica
Monica,
Lynn
Monica.
at the time, and there was a jealousy factor because she's like watching from the side and like, wow, he kind of digs the Storm chick.
Do you remember roughly around what issue that may have been?
Not off the top of my head, but I
Okay.
can find it for you.
Well,
But anyway, the point remains that Priest's run had a little bit of everything. You had him going up against his own Avengers. You had him going up against Namor. You had Wakanda poised to fight the entire world, where they became public enemy number one. I mean, there was just so much that happened in his run. Him going to the land of the dead with Moon Knight, and establishing the fact that the Panther god Bast and Khonshu are actually siblings. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that happened in Priest's run. In addition to just, as I said, making him cool, reimagining him for a modern era is what Priest did. And everything that flowed afterwards comes from that. That's why it's my personal favorite.
So here's the thing with Black Panther. As we know, he was introduced in the Fantastic Four. Then he made his appearances in the early 70s in the Avengers. He became a member of the Avengers. After he became a member of the Avengers, he then popped up in Jungle Action. His first actual independent run with his name on it was with what's my man's name? Jack Kirby. And that was a horrible, horrible run, in all fairness. Jack Kirby's run was issues like
It
one.
wasn't horrible. It just wasn't good.
It was horrible. Same thing. So the
horrible would be he who has not been named.
Again,
I wouldn't say it was that bad.
It wasn't that bad, but it was not good. It was horrible.
That's what I said.
So
it was not good.
It was horrible. So
it was not horrible.
The last 3 issues were written by somebody else. I think his name was Eric something or another, and I could be wrong. But that was volume number 1. Volume number 2 was a 4-issue miniseries that came out in the 80s in 1988. This run, the Priest run, is volume number 3. This came out 10 years later. So there was a 10-year period where Black Panther did not have his own run of comic books. The only time that you saw him was when he appeared in the Avengers, and he was ubiquitous in the Avengers during the 1980s. So after that 4-issue limited series, for whatever reason, Marvel gave Priest this particular run. Now, in preparing for the show, we picked up the number 1s of those volumes. The first appearances of Black Panther and Jungle Action, Priest number 1, Hudlin number 1. This issue was significantly funnier than what I recalled it being, because telling the story through Everett Ross is a clown, and it was very, very funny. Like, I'm literally laughing out loud as I'm reading this.
And he clearly based the character on Michael J. Fox.
Okay. But one of the things that was disconcerting is that this book had 22 pages, right? Issue number 1. Only 9 of these pages had T'Challa in it. And one of the things that I did not like about this book, personally, is that T'Challa did not look like the T'Challa that I was accustomed to from the Avengers, from his first 2 issues, first 2 volumes, from his run in Jungle Action. T'Challa looked like Keenan Ivory Wayans in A Low Down Dirty Shame. You pull that picture up. A Low Down Dirty Shame was a movie that starred Keenan Ivory Wayans and serial husband abuser Jada Pinkett Smith. And if you look at this picture right here in the middle with with T'Challa flanked by the Dora. And then look at the photograph from A Low Down Dirty Shame. And that should be in the inbox that I sent you.
Yeah, I mean that's
Can you pull
clearly
up that picture can you
yeah.
pull up that picture I sent you?
I beg your pardon?
The picture that I sent you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hold on. Clearly,
To
the
me,
infinite.
to me, it seems like this is what Priest and the artist uh Tahira, is that how you pronounce that?
Texiera, Marc Texiera.
Marc Texiera based their T'Challa on, because there's only a 4-year difference. This movie came out, A Low Down Dirty Shame came out in 1994. The Priest run of Black Panther came out in 1998. I don't know if you can put them up side by side, but if you
I
look
can't
at,
do that. I can't do that.
right, if you look at this image of Keenan Ivory Wayans with fine ass Sally Richardson on the left side of the screen,
And
Jada
your
Pinkett
favorite girl, Jada Pinkett.
on the right. This image right here looks exactly, to me at least, like the other image. And for me, that's not what T'Challa looks like. T'Challa's always rocking the small fro. Even though he's cool, he's not Shaft type cool like what Keenan Ivory Wayans was in this movie.
Well, I don't care what you say. I liked it.
I mean, and that's fine, you know. But I
Pericles
like
says, I
I
thought they were
like
going for Avery Brooks as Hawk.
That's another one. That is another one. You have a strong, bald-headed black dude wearing shades. Right. That's another one. Hawk from Spencer for Hire, A Low Down Dirty Shame, uh, what's my name? Samuel L. Jackson's version of Shaft, which came out 2 years after this, because his Shaft came out in 2000, 2001. But that's just not how I personally have always envisioned T'Challa. That's not how he has been depicted up to that point. So I was not a fan of that. Now I vaguely remember the whole run, because again, it's been 15 years since I've read it. But Priest did introduce a lot of very important characters and elements to the mythos of T'Challa, and I do respect him for that. But it's not my favorite in comparison to what's come after. Like I said, it's top three. But if things had been done better, if we didn't have Coates, if we didn't have the other individual before Ridley, before Eve, then Dr. Ewing, yeah.
Priest also introduced the concept of the Dora Milaje. This was also the first appearance of the Dora Milaje. This is also the first appearance of Okoye and Anika. Nakia, sorry, I said Anika. Okoye and Nakia. Nakia, who would later become Malice. But this is it.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that they were pretty young at the time. They introduced them as teenagers. They said he said that they were actually teenagers at the time.
Yeah. Ross in the book, Ross says that they're barely legal. So they were teens. And basically in this book, T'Challa has come to the ghettos of New York and is letting a drug dealer know that he needs his help, and he's going to get it by any means necessary, because a young child, actually, a girl, had been murdered. So T'Challa basically drops everything from Wakanda, even though he was dealing with some internal strife. He left everything behind to come find out who killed this young child. And he's coercing this drug dealer to help him find out who that murderer was. And of course, he's using his technology.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. Is one of the things that Priest also introduces the fact that T'Challa has these gadgets. He was in an interview. Priest said that he always liked Black Man, and he wanted to make T'Challa Marvel's Batman. A guy who, you know,
use tech.
has all these skills and he's got this tech and he could defeat anybody. And
One of the
that's what
things
he
about
wanted. That's what he wanted to convey.
one of the things that has been established about Wakanda from the very, very beginning is that it is the most advanced, not one of, but it is the most advanced nation on planet Earth. Okay.
Well, I got to push back on it. Before this run, it was always labeled as what you just said, one of the most. Priest said, no. He says in this right here, the most technologically advanced society in the free world. He unabashedly said, Wakanda's it. They're number one. They're at the top of the food chain in terms of technology.
And that's the way I have always envisioned it, even going back to his days when he took on the Fantastic Four. He was able to do so because he came from this super hyper advanced nation. And the panel that Paul just showed a moment ago, the drug dealer and his cronies were pulling guns on T'Challa. He was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not having that." So he had some little gadget and basically electrified the car and turned the car into a taser. And then he drags him up, onto a roof. Now, this is my second favorite Black Panther uniform. This with the gold on it, that's tight.
They just released that action figure. You know that, right?
I'm sorry.
They just released that action figure from the Priest run.
I don't know if I was aware of that or not.
Well, I'm telling you, they just released the action figure from the Priest. Well, they're pre-ordered the action figure from the Priest run with the gold.
Now, here's what's interesting about this is T'Challa is walking towards the bad guy. And as he's walking, his normal uniform, or his suit rather, morphs into this uniform. And I don't know if that was, well, it definitely wasn't explained.
This was the first time that they had the idea of the nanite type of clothing that can alter.
It wasn't explained in this particular issue. It may have come and probably came later on, but I just found that was interesting, that as he's walking, his suit morphs into his Black Panther uniform, and I just thought that was cool.
Very it also established that it's made out of vibranium, is the fact that he stabbed him with a knife and it broke.
Yep. He was like, "You get to go first, but then after you go, I go." And here's one of the things just about to say this. He drugged this dude up a ladder by his hair. That establishes how strong and physical T'Challa is, because you got to look. He's going up a ladder with a dude who's probably between 180 and 200 pounds, and he just has it by his hair.
The other thing is that Priest established, if you look at his boots, it's the first time you saw T'Challa with these particular types of boots that had this vibranium material that allowed him to not only jump from the top of buildings and land without any injury because they absorbed the impact, it also allowed him to scale walls, much like an actual jungle cat could. So he had all of these unique technological things that sort of added to his playbook that previously he had never had. I mean, before that, he just had a cotton T-shirt, which, some people love. That's their version. That's all they like. They like him with the cotton T-shirt he had in Jungle Action, which get torn in every issue. This one, now he's got some protection. He's got some new abilities as a result of that technology that he has from being the most advanced country in the world.
So here's the thing. In this book, go back one page.
I can't do that.
How can you not go backwards? But anyway, so basically what you're seeing is Everett Ross is telling a story to his supervisor. In the comic books, Everett Ross works for the State Department. He's basically a bureaucrat. And he was assigned, despite the fact that T'Challa had been in America for years at this point, had come back and forth all the time. For whatever reason, the State Department decided to have a liaison between the State and T'Challa. And if you look at the boxes, that is T'Challa, the Everett Ross talking to his boss about what has occurred. So that's what you're dealing with now. And this is, as Paul said at the beginning, this is Everett K. Ross's version of events as they happen. And it was a unique story device. You know, as long as I've been reading comic books up until this point, I can't recall a third person viewing of the main character in this manner. See, this is that's Everett K. Ross's boss who's yelling at him, who he's also sleeping with. So
Who also was a girlfriend of T'Challa's. When T'Challa was in college, he used to date this woman who was Everett K. Ross's boss.
yeah. So basically Ross is getting T'Challa's sloppy second. And that's the young lady who, or the girl, I keep saying young lady, she's a child. That's the child who was killed, kind of like what happened in Civil War to a certain degree, Captain America Civil War, that got T'Challa involved in American affairs because somebody under his so-called protection was murdered. So T'Challa, left Wakanda to come to the U.S. to try to find out who killed her and to get justice for her. Wakanda Gate. And this is images of Ross and that lady. I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name either.
Yeah,
but Ross was dating his boss as well.
Right. I don't know if her name was said in this. I just can't recall, even though I read it earlier today.
Which is kind of consistent. One of the things you're not going to know, Mark, because you never saw Wakanda Forever, is they said that Ross used to be married to his boss, which in the movie was actually
Fontaine.
Valentina Contessa von Fontaine.
Yeah.
But in the comics, it was this State Department woman who actually went to college with T'Challa, and they used to
right. But the Fontaine chick in the comics was actually dating Nick Fury, so they went and changed things from that. But basically, this panel is saying how there was a refugee issue. In
this panel talks about kind of what was going on in the last Black Panther run, the 4-issue series that Dennis Cowan did the artwork on. Talking about border disputes with countries that neighbor Wakanda.
Much like what's going on over in the Middle East or Israel right now, you have people trying to escape violence. And in the comic book, people trying to escape violence were coming to Wakanda, and T'Challa, being the honorable, noble person that he is, opened up his borders to these people and established refugee camps. And in this book, it's saying that in Wakanda, you had two people. You had the city dwellers and you had the village dwellers. And the village dwellers didn't like the city dwellers, and the city dwellers didn't like the village dwellers. And none of them liked the immigrants coming in. So that's nothing that's new or uncommon in the world of politics and obviously in comic books. It bled its way into that.
It's great
that's what T'Challa had to leave behind when he came to the U.S. to try to find out who murdered that little girl.
Yeah, Priest uses very little exposition to sort of bring people up to speed as to who the Black Panther is. Again, this issue was run as if you've never met the Black Panther. You've never read a book from him before in your life. And it was a great way it's like Jay-Z's line, "Allow me to reintroduce myself." That's what this run was. It's sort of the reintroduction of people to who the Black Panther is. And Priest made a lot of references to his past, Black Panther's history, in Jungle Action comics and also in Avengers comics, because he brought a lot of those characters back and put them in his run. So I thought that was kind of cool. But he mentions here, educated in Europe and America, he returned home to pass a series of trials and attain a heart-shaped herb that heightened his physical strength and natural senses. The cat suit is largely ceremonial and marks him as the leader of the Panther clan.
I like this uniform too. I like the fact that you can't see his eyes, you don't see his mouth. I really like this uniform, but I really like the OG uniform as well.
Well, you got to pre-order the book. The action figure when it comes out.
That's Zuri right there, top right panel. That was an old friend of T'Challa's father, T'Chaka. In the movie, he was played by the Oscar winner Forrest Whitaker.
And they have this little conversation he's having with Ramonda, who's his
Stepmother.
stepmother,
And it
and he
establishes
refers
the
to
fact in just this one panel that that is not his biological mother. And even though it's not his biological mother, he still loves her and refers her to such as mother, because T'Challa's birth mother died when he was a baby. I don't recall if she died during birth but she died very, very early on.
no, he died. She died when he was very young.
Right. And then the king remarried and married Ramonda.
Well, the king got depressed and locked up a couple women, or at least one woman, and then he got remarried, which is why T'Challa has a half brother out there, Jakara.
I don't recall that.
You don't remember that?
Not at all. But yeah, that's this issue was really, really funny.
Oh, this if you look,
It's hilarious.
if you could read this and not get into Black Panther, there's no helping you.
Yeah, it was. Ross is an extremely funny character. He's played by, in live action, what's the actor's name?
Oh, I can't remember the British actor's name.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember his name.
If they had made the Black Panther movie in the 90s, it definitely would have been Michael J.
Michael
Fox.
J. Fox, yeah. Before his, what was it, MS or Parkinson? Before his Parkinson's really took over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Priest literally said he kind of based Everett K. Ross on Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox, who many of you may not know if you're of a certain age, but just understand, Michael J. Fox in the 1980s was that dude. He was like TV royalty. He was, one of the top box office draw. He's Marty McFly. If you've seen Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox is Marty McFly, and he was like the dude back in the day. And I could absolutely see him playing this role. Oh, and for those who don't know, in this panel that's up on the screen, that's Mephisto, Marvel's version of the Devil. And
who T'Challa, I think, puts in a chokehold or something at some point. I mean, there's just Priest had T'Challa do all types of crazy stuff. Everything from the art to the writing of this Priest one was incredible. Understand? Let me put just a little bit more context. This run was done under the Marvel Knights imprint. This was kind of like Marvel trying to take several characters, C-list, D-list characters, and make them more prominent. They had Marvel Knights Punisher, Daredevil,
Luke Cage.
I want to say Elektra or Black Widow, and Black Panther.
Luke Cage wasn't one.
No, Luke Cage wasn't one of them. You're thinking of the Max series. Gotcha. This is the Marvel Knights series.
Gotcha.
So those are the characters. It might have been Ghost Rider. I don't remember. It might have been Ghost Rider as well. But they decided to take these C-list characters and try to make them in a more mature book. Put a hot artist, hot writer on the book, and try to reinvent the characters and make them more popular. It was supposed to be a limited series, but because the series did so well, Marvel moved it from being a limited Marvel Knights imprint limited series and make it an ongoing series. And they kept Priest on as writer, but they changed artist to Sal Voluto, who was also his own great artist in his own right. And who did an excellent job on the run.
Yeah. We've said it ad nauseum. This isn't my favorite run, but a lot of important characters were introduced and a lot of important parts of the mythology that became T'Challa was introduced during the Priest run, and Priest is an absolute legend in comic books, so he gets mad props for the work that he's done.
Afro SF Ian's Comics 78. Priest one was legendary. I loved when the world was on the brink of World War III, when a human child was given a Sam Makam. That's the one I was talking about. that was like a major storyline where Wakanda is posed to basically be at the center of World War III, and you get to see just how advanced their technology is. T'Challa rolls out these sky ships and submarines and watercraft and soldiers with all types of weapons. You're like, Wakanda low key could literally take over the world if they wanted to.
Yeah, I have no.
The Christopher Priest run made me absolutely respect Black Panther much more than ever. It was like a new era for Black Panther. That's exactly how.
That's absolutely true.
Issue 25 through 28. That I think that's the answer to your question. You're asking
Storm,
about
Storm and
the
Monica
Storm
with Monica Lynn.
Yeah. Missed Marc Texeira's art when he left. It was gorgeous. It really was incredible art. Quick story. Took my wife. I don't think she was my wife at the time. I think we were still dating or engaged or something. Took her to her very first Comic-Con. I went to MegaCon in Orlando. And she knew, obviously, my favorite comic book, my favorite character is Black Panther. And she's like, what's it? My wife knows nothing about comics at all. She's like, what would be a cool thing to get signed? I said, well, Black Panther, no, Fantastic 452, but you're not going to, be able to afford that or whatever. She's like, I just want to find out what would be cool. Well, first issues are usually what you want to have signed if an artist is there. She goes, okay. Then she disappears. I'm going through the long boxes, trying to find stuff. And she comes out and she brings out this Christopher Priest #1. I already own this issue. But she says, what about this issue? Is this a good issue? I said, yeah, that's the issue that made me love Black Panther. It has a lot of significance to me because that's the issue that made the Black Panther my favorite superhero of all time. That very first issue. I'm like, that's it. She goes, okay, cool. She disappears again. I'm like, back in my long boxes. And she says, hey, come here. I was like, what? She's like, come here. And she brings me over to the artist alley. And who's there but Marc Texeira, sitting there by himself. And she goes, this guy said he can sign it. He says he's the artist. I'm like, that's Marc Texeira. She's like, yeah, he says he's the artist. So I saw that he's the artist, and I said he could sign it for you. So Marc Texeira then signs it and then draws a Black Panther remark on the issue. My wife. Brilliant woman. That's why I married her. That's my Marc Texeira story. Disney Plus cutting parody cameos to quiet the noise. I don't know what that means.
Ezra Miller and Echo. That doesn't even make sense. Why would Ezra Miller be an Echo?
I hate Jay-Z, face orange, frowning. Okay. I love Kirby's Black Panther. Traveling brass frogs, men from 1 million years in the future.
Oh, Afro.
You can't convince me Kirby wasn't smoking on some stuff back in the day. I just ordered a copy of the Mighty Avengers 1969 with Black Panther and Bach online. That's what's up. That's what's up. That's what we're here to do. Inspire people to go buy comics and read comics. It's like Mark said, Black Panther was extremely strong when he lifted the guy by the hair. That was very powerful.
Yep.
And freaking Mephisto shows up. Just so much happened in that one issue. Understand, all those panels I showed you, that was one issue that all that happened. The reintroduction of the character, Everett K. Ross.
Like I said,
introduction of Dora Milaje.
T'Challa was only in 9 pages of that, and I kind of take issue with that. And even though I say that, reading the Hudlin run, T'Challa barely shows up in this, so I can't be hypocritical. But this is my favorite Black Panther run of all time.
So you have cover B.
Do I?
You didn't realize that?
No, I didn't.
That's cover B. That's not cover A.
What's cover A?
Well, thank you for asking.
So, like, when the Hudlin run came out, I think I got to it late, but I have all of the issues. And see, I absolutely love.
This is cover A. John by John Romita Jr., the interior artist.
How is this different from what I have?
You're kidding me, right? That's a completely different artist who did that cover.
Okay, but it's the same image. So, okay.
It's not. If you look closer, you'll see the differences.
Okay, yeah, there are clouds in the cover A, there are mountains in the cover B. Okay.
The art style is completely different, Mark. The image of him crouching and walking through the veldt is the same, but the art is clearly
Yeah,
different.
yeah, I see that. But at first blush, because typically, well, it has been my experience that when you have variant covers, they are not similar in nature like these two are, because these are basically the same images. Although, again, like you said, they're different artists. But yeah, I never would have paid attention to that.
So this is Mark's favorite run, the Reggie Hudlin run from 2005.
And
Now,
they made this
go ahead.
into a stop action cartoon and bought
Motion comic is what it's called.
motion comic, right? Episode number 1 of the stop motion cartoon comes directly from this book. And when I say directly, I'm talking about the images and the dialogue. And before we went on live here, I watched that episode, and you could literally pick up the book, go page for page, watching the screen, and you'll see the same images and the same dialogue. And I absolutely love how this book established the fact that Wakanda was not one to be effed with going back centuries. The book starts off in the 5th century AD. So we're talking about what, the 600s back in the day? Natives of Africa, tribes of Africa knew not to mess with the Wakandans, and they were absolutely terrified. And they would slaughter anybody who tried to invade and leave just one person behind. So that one person could run off with his tail tucked between his legs and tell his cohorts, like, look, you don't mess with Wakanda. Those aren't people you want problems with. And I absolutely love this. And then you move forward to the 19th century, where you have basically that guy right there on the right-hand side. That's one of Ulysses Claw's ancestors, who I want to say he was Belgian, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe, yeah, Belgium or Dutch.
Right. And so, Europeans at the time, and they still do feel that they are superior to anything or anyone on the continent of Africa. And so they came to Africa, specifically trying to go to Wakanda to try to take over using their so-called advanced weaponry so they can plunder the continent, as they've done throughout real life history. Europeans have plundered the African continent. And that's what Hudlin brought up in this, is he was trying to show that that's what they were trying to do. But some of the natives were like, okay, look, we know about Wakanda. We know their history. We know that they're badasses. We're out. And so they slaughtered them, shot them in the back and absolutely slaughtered them. And it just shows the barbarism of the European, because, that's what they've done. They've plundered and murdered Africans for centuries. And Hudlin captured that perfectly.
Slaughter the disposable people, leaving themselves.
What's funny about this panel right here is after they killed all the Africans, which is not funny, but then they realized, okay, so we killed all the people who were carrying our stuff. We now have to carry our stuff and push these damn cannons up everywhere. So now they found themselves in a physical struggle trying to do the stuff that they had the Africans for. And there we
now
have.
Notice this this symbol of Bast. Remember, we showed you in Jungle Action number 5, the first sort of full appearance of Bast in Marvel Comics. Notice that this statue looks exactly like the one that was in that issue. I thought that was a cool throwback. One of the things I loved about the Hudlin run was the references he made to all the prior Black Panther books. Hudlin was very good about that. And I think for me, what sets Hudlin's run apart from all the other runs is, although Priest made him cool and redefined the character for the modern era, Hudlin, his attitude towards writing the character is that this is an A-list character. I'm going to treat him like an A-list character. I don't care what the sales are. I don't care what the history. I don't care what other books are doing with regard to the character. I'm writing this guy as if he is an A-list superhero with $1 billion film and merch and toys and lunchboxes. That's the way I am writing the character. That's what Hudlin did.
Now,
And
Paul,
so he put T'Challa in situations where it's not just that he's acknowledged that he's the best at basically everything. He marries the baddest woman in all of Marvel Comics, Storm, and they become the most powerful couple in comics. Period. I didn't say in Black comics. I didn't say the most powerful black couple. I said they were the most powerful couple in comics. Period.
Now, Paul just said that he Hudlin wrote him as if he was an A-list character with the big movie or whatever the case may be. But understand, T'Challa would not see live action for another 11 years after the Hudlin run began. Hudlin runs began in 05.
Yeah.
Now, what I will say is that the Priest run ended around 03. And then 2 years later, the Hudlin run began, and this was a great run. Now, what you have here is these are images of the U.S. government.
Now,
And
Bush. This is 2005, so Bush is in office right now.
Correct.
Bush Jr.
Correct. And this lady right here is basically Condoleezza Rice.
Although they refer to her as Conti.
Yeah. If you pull up a picture, I sent you a picture of Condoleezza Rice so people can see. Condoleezza Rice was the first Black woman Secretary of State following Colin Powell, who was the first Black Secretary of State. Condoleezza Rice was also the first female Black national security advisor. I want to say she may have actually been the first female security advisor, but she definitely was the first Black female national security advisor.
I forget what school she went to, but she graduated top of her class. Her resume is impeccable.
Here's what's crazy. A lot of people a lot of Black folks may not F with Condoleezza Rice because of the fact that she's associated with Republican administrations. But you have to understand something. This woman is from Birmingham, Alabama. She went to school with at least one of the young ladies who was killed during the 16th Street bombing. Okay. So she was raised during American apartheid in an apartheid state of Birmingham, Alabama. Despite that, despite her ethnicity, despite her gender, she used her intellect to rise above her station. I have the greatest deal of, I may not agree with her politics, but I have the greatest deal of respect for Condoleezza Rice, bar none. You can't tell me anything negative about her other than the fact that you may disagree with her politics. But this woman is fluent in Russian. I want to say she worked for Madeleine Albright's. She was like a student of Madeleine Albright's dad or Madeleine Albright herself. Madeleine Albright was the first, I want to say, female Secretary of State.
Right.
So she has been a bureaucrat her entire life. Condoleezza Rice has. I think she went to Stanford. Either she went to Stanford or she ended up becoming the president of Stanford. One of the two. I want to say there's a Stanford connection, but she's an absolutely brilliant woman. So,
and she's big into college football.
Professional football. She likes pro football. She wants to be the first female NFL commissioner.
But she, college football wise, when they do votes, she's one of the people that actually had a vote on rankings.
Right. But she also is a huge pro football fan.
Yeah.
But when Hudlin wrote this book, he based that character, that government official that Paul just showed, on Condoleezza Rice. It was
Right.
contemporaneous. So yeah, I think her name
And in
was
the cartoon, the general who's like, who's this Black Panther guy? Why are we so afraid of him? He was voiced by Stan Lee.
Yeah,
He was kind of a racist guy too.
not kind of. He was a racist. Yeah, and
Oh,
her name.
Dondi. I said
Her name is
Conti.
Dondi.
He referred to her as Dondi.
Yeah, like Dondi Reese or something like
Yeah.
that. So instead of Condoleezza Rice,
This admiral says, "We're the friggin' United States of friggin' America. Where do a bunch of jungle bunnies get off telling us they've got a no-fly zone over their thatched hut?" And Dondi gives him the stare like, "You racist." And he's like, "Did I say something wrong?" "Oh, Dondi, but I'm sorry. I didn't mean it when I say shut up. I mean, you're not like you. Shut up."
now in
Clever.
the stop action cartoon, the voice of Dondi Reese, or whatever the character's name is, was voiced by Alfre Woodard, who
Yeah.
is from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I'm from. Alfre's niece was my class president in high school, and she also appeared in both Luke Cage and Captain America: Civil War.
So, I said Hudlin always made reference to what happened before, and he brought back Everett Ross because they're trying to figure out who's the Black Panther. Why is this guy, so significant? And who they bring in, the foremost expert on the Black Panther, Everett K. Ross from the State Department, to give a briefing to the Secretary of State and the Chiefs of Staff as to who the Black Panther is.
But here's what doesn't make sense to me, is that the Black Panther has been a member of the Avengers for years. So the fact that they don't know who he is or where he's from, I found kind of, disingenuous, for lack of a better term. So
Not really, because even though he was an Avenger for years, there was never any discussion as to who he is or who Wakanda is. That issue you showed in the Avengers 62, that was T'Challa taking the Avengers to Wakanda, but that still wasn't opening of Wakanda to the world.
right,
Much of Wakanda was still shrouded in the history. It was still shrouded in secrecy at this point.
But we're talking about a 20-year period, because that Avengers issue
Well,
was
not
like
20 years in Marvel
20 years in 20 years in our time. But that was in the 1970s. So between the 1970s and when this run came out in 2005, I would have thought that in the Avengers, and I can't obviously remember every Avengers book, but they would have had some discussion about Wakanda. And I want to say Wakanda had what do you call them? Embassies here in the United States. But maybe I'm confusing that with later issues.
Yeah, but even an embassy doesn't mean you're going to learn about a culture just because they have an embassy. The
Well,
fact remains, there also even wasn't that many books about Black Panther during that time. I mean, there was just Priest Run. That was it.
I agree, but my point is that he, during that whole time, was in the Avengers from the 70s to the modern time. So
No, he was not.
well, yeah, that's true, because in the 90s he had already left. So it was in the 70s and 80s
Yeah.
that he was a member of the Avengers.
Throughout the 90s, he was not anywhere near the Avengers.
Right. Because it was like Mordro, Hercules, Captain America, Star Fox. Yeah. He left in the 80s. And not Everett K. Ross. I don't like this Everett K. Ross because he looks old. I like the other kind of newish to the State Department Everett K. Ross. I don't like this guy.
It also established in this issue that America tried to find out more about Wakanda by sending their very best. And by the best, they meant Captain America. Back in 1944, they sent Captain America to Wakanda on mission.
Yeah,
and he met T'Challa's grandfather, Azuri, at the time.
He was on the hunt for some Nazis, and Wakanda had already dealt with the Nazis, 3 days or so before. Can you pull up that video and just show that fight?
I
Change
can't
the
do that. No, I get tagged for doing that. I can't do that.
Okay. Even though it's on YouTube already? How does that work? Why
Can't.
would you like that?
That's not how it works, dude.
Yeah. So basically the US government, as they've done many times, is trying to institute regime change. And in order to do that, they've enlisted Claw, who killed T'Challa's father, T'Chaka. And Claw, is putting together a squad to try to come in and undermine the government of Wakanda. And so that was the last image that you saw, where he's trying to recruit some individuals to basically come in and take things over so America can swoop in and be its savior.
Don't get me started, Pericles.
Go ahead, go back. What was it? What did he say? Go back. And of course, X-Fans bitched him on, oh, you just put Storm with Black Panther because they're black. She should be with Wolverine. Well, they're dumb. No.
And don't read comics.
Here's what's interesting. One of my comic book guy at the store I go to, he did not like the union of Storm and T'Challa, which I do not understand. Their union, or the fact that they know each other, was established way back in the 1980s. Marvel Team Up number 100, I believe it is. And that's one of the reasons why the Hudlin run was so very important to me, is because he dug deep into the crates and had that union blossom into a full-blown relationship, that the marriage of Storm and T'Challa was an event across Marvel. And this was a time during the Civil War, Marvel Civil War. So you had Captain America's faction versus Iron Man's faction. So this was across all comic books. But on top of that, you had this union between Storm and T'Challa, that everybody put their animus aside, went to Wakanda to watch them get married. That was a big effing deal. And that's one of the reasons why Hudlin, for me, will always be number one, because as I continually say, in this space, there is no black superhero love in comics in the big three being Marvel, DC, and Image. You will rarely, if ever, find black love. Paul, the last time we met a couple of weeks ago, mentioned Bumblebee and Mal Duncan. Mal Duncan doesn't have any powers. Black Lightning has his daughters, but his wife, she doesn't have powers. And in comic books, I don't know if she's even mentioned. Luke Cage is with Jessica Jones, a white woman. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because there's not. But when it comes to specifically black love, black superhero love, it's lacking in comics. And Reginald Hudlin saw that and did something about it. He will always get mad props from me for that.
Yeah. Well, that completes our Wakanda section. So we're going to take a short break and come back and get into some television, what we're watching. So with that, we will take this very short break. This week in Black History, Black Comic Lord celebrates the artistry of Dennis Cowan. Dennis Cowan is a comic book artist with a flair for naturalism. If I didn't know any better, I thought the brother lived and breathed in brick-walled alleys, inhaling the pollution of the city streets and exhaling with pictures of agony and anguish. You see, it's hard to describe Mr. Cowan's art, so I'm forced to use a ghetto analogy. Dennis Cowan art is like fish and grits. It's not first on the menu, but you're glad you spotted it. Visually, it tastes good and your eyes will be filled. Yes, filled, I say, filled with detail. They say the devil is in the details, but Dennis be like, hold my beer. Because the brother crafts scenes and faces where it makes you wonder, did he miss anything? Each panel is filled with action, and though pictures cannot physically move, Dennis Cowan shows and proves that they actually can. From Batman to The Question to the Black Panther and others, Dennis Cowan's art speaks like Terminator X speaks with his hands. That makes him a bad man and worthy to be celebrated. Salute the living legend that is Dennis Cowan, a Black history legend. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, peace. Well, now we're going to get into what we're watching. Big thing came out this week was Loki season 2, episode 5. Did you watch it?
Of course, Loki. Loki is good. I really like it. It's probably the best Disney Plus MCU thing. Um, yeah, I really really enjoyed WandaVision, but I think Loki is probably the best, followed by WandaVision. Hold on. Go back to some of the comments so we can read them and see.
I'll start with this comment before we get into the what we're watching. The storyline was originally T'Challa was skinny dipping with Sue Storm before he met Storm and before Sue married Reed.
I know that image. I just don't know where it originates from.
It was in a Hudlin. It was in a Hudlin run. It was a flashback scene. It was funny. I actually reposted that scene and tagged Reggie Hudlin on it. And Reggie and I talked about the fact that, you know, that Marvel made a huge mistake in breaking up Black Panther and Storm.
I'm sorry, Black Panther and Storm?
Yeah, I said Marvel made a huge mistake in breaking up.
Black Panther and Storm. Storm, Aurora Monroe, not Sue Storm.
Not Sue Storm, correct.
Right.
So and I don't remember how it related, but I posted that picture. I tagged that picture to Reggie Hudlin, and he said, if I knew that if I knew that Marvel was going to do that, I would have had Black Panther smash Sue Storm.
But here's the thing, though. The image that I have in my mind was like from the 1960s. You know,
they made it look like a retro flashback.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, they intentionally made it look like it came from the 60s.
Okay.
But that was in the Hudlin run.
Gotcha. I never knew where that came from. But okay.
Was Wolverine and Storm a thing? Eric, I think you might be trolling me right now. That's a trigger for me. I don't like to acknowledge that BS between Wolverine and Storm. The rebound for both of them, Wolverine was rebounding from his rejection from Jean Grey, and Storm was rebounding from her annulment of her marriage by T'Challa. It was a bad time. I don't like to talk about it.
Thank you, Call T. Plain. Appreciate it.
If you like the program, please hit the like button. It costs you nothing. Hit the like button. That's right there. Subscribe to our channel if you're not subscribed, and certainly hit the bell for notifications to let us know to let you know when the videos come on. That's all we ask. And if you want to drop some dirt in our bucket, as our boy D Real says, please donate some money into the super chat. Every dollar helps us to keep the lights on and keep this channel going. Eric says the cat combo doesn't fit.
Nope.
From me as well, Mr. Hudlin will always be the #1 Black Panther writer.
I agree.
I won't argue with that. I mean, we all have our personal favorites, but I think the three writers we identified are clearly the best Black Panther writers. Starting off, so I'm out. Good night, everyone. Okay. Good night, man. Talk to you later, Wayne. Peace. Have y'all talked about the new Ultimate Black Panther run yet? We have not.
So you get the Ultimates? Hold on. Did you get the Ultimates book that just came out?
The new Ultimate book that just came out?
Yeah, on Wednesday.
Shit. I did, and I was going to show it, and I left it downstairs.
Okay. So the Ultimate Universe came out in the early 2000s. There were several different books in the Ultimate Universe. The main Marvel Universe is Marvel 616. The Ultimate Universe is Marvel
1610.
Correct. So in 1610, there was never an individual Black Panther comic book. He made an appearance somewhere that I do not recall.
It was the Captain America annual, Ultimate
Right.
Captain America annual.
I have it. I don't remember it. But there were several different books in the Ultimate Universe. There was the Ultimates, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, etc., etc. Black Panther did not have his own book. Well, they are relaunching the Ultimate line. There was a 4 or 5 issue Ultimate Invasion book that wasn't honestly that good. They had a one shot that dropped this week, and at the end of the book, there was an image of a Black Panther figure rising kind of from the wreckage, or kind of
I
off,
like how you phrase that, a Black Panther figure, not the Black Panther, but a Black Panther figure. We don't
because
know who it
we
is.
don't know who that Black Panther is or will be. It may very well be T'Challa. They may make somebody else. And see, that was one of the beautiful things about the Ultimate Universe, is that characters that we are familiar with from the 616 are reinvented and done in different ways in the Ultimate Universe, which I really appreciate. So for people who are not long-term uh, readers the way that we are, they could have hopped on in the Ultimate Universe and got new stories without having to read, 30 years of comic books to be able to understand where they were. So we're about to have at least, I want to say, 3 different Ultimate books when it drops. I think like either later this year, early next year, and I'm really looking forward to this Ultimate Black Panther run. The dude who's writing Blade, Hill.
Brian Edward Hill.
Brian Edward Hill will be writing the new Ultimate Black Panther. Because he's doing such a wonderful job on Blade, I'm really looking forward to the Ultimate Black Panther run. So
He
one of
was
the ones
also the writer of the Killmonger series and Black Panther Unconquered.
I have Black Panther Unconquered, but I don't recall it right off the top of my head. But yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah,
an excellent writer. He's an
yeah.
excellent writer.
Really loving his work on Blade, so I am looking forward to the Ultimate Black Panther run.
Amir says he was talking to you on Instagram.
Yes, indeed. We were talking about the Ultimate book. Yeah, we were talking about the Ultimate book. Yeah, just the other day.
Eric the Guapo says they were each other's. That's why I don't like relationships with superheroes. They do goofy stuff. It's just weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen
Yes.
the Echo trailer?
Yes. Have you seen it?
I did.
It looks
It's interesting. I was watching some of the YouTubers' comments on and the reactions to it. One of the things that in context, no one really was asking for an Echo show.
No.
And it kind of got announced and greenlit back when whatever Marvel head guy was saying, hey, we've got this new Disney Plus platform coming out. It's going to need content. And they greenlit everything under the sun.
Yeah.
They announced much of it has not come into fruition.
Right.
But they were greenlighting every single project you can think of for content because they're worried about having content. And Echo was one of those things. And they actually went ahead and, I guess, finished it. But the trailer was cool. I'm not certain the context in which they're going to do it or how much they're going to base on the comics. The comics in which she was sort of introduced and most prominent in were Daredevil comics. Daredevil was in the trailer. You saw him for 1.5 seconds in the trailer. So he'll be in there. But, her introduction in the comics was really kind of a love story between her and Daredevil. I don't know how deep they're going to go with that and do a whole origin thing. And there seemed to be focusing more on the relationship she had with Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, more than anything else. And that sort of beggars the question, are they going to try to portray her as more of an anti-hero? I don't know. It has a more mature-looking style, which is cool. I would love to see Disney Plus do more mature stuff because some of the content, like Daredevil, Punisher, Echo, these are characters that aren't, these aren't just, this isn't for kids.
So let me say
this
this.
is more mature content, so they should give it more of that feel.
Echo is, in all honesty, a D-list character.
Definitely a D-list character.
Nobody really cares about. I don't care about Echo, like, at all. I have some books with her. I'm not a Daredevil fan like that, so I don't have that run. In the latest Avengers run, or one of the more recent Avengers run, she makes an appearance when the Phoenix Force makes yet its 136th appearance. She's there. I don't really care about her. She made her appearance live action during the Hawkeye series, and the Hawkeye series I enjoyed. But because she made that appearance there, and Wilson Fisk made his appearance there as well, for whatever reason, they decided, okay, well, yeah, let's go ahead and get us a series. I wasn't looking forward to it. I don't care about the character at all. However, I did watch the trailer this morning, and let me tell you, the MCU aside, this is something that I would watch independently because of the fact that it seems to be action, martial arts driven, and it looks very, very good. As an aside, Vincent D'Onofrio, who is an extremely underrated actor, is once again putting on his persona of Wilson Fisk. He did a wonderful job in Daredevil with that. Really, really looking forward to it. I do think that Echo will probably be good. Now, one of the things that Disney has done or Marvel Studios has done with this is that instead of dropping it week by week, they're going to drop all of them at once in January. And so, that's the whole Netflix version of doing things. Disney set itself apart by dropping things week by week, or as we used to call it, television. This whole streaming thing is something new within the past 10, 15 years where you can drop all the content at one time and you can watch it at your leisure. Back in the day before streaming services, you had to wait week by week to watch stuff, and that's one of the things that Disney Plus has done with all of its episodes or all of its series. WandaVision, Hawkeye, et cetera, et cetera. You have to wait week by week, but they're just dropping all of it on us. And so a lot of people think they're doing so because they don't have much faith in it. But
Yeah.
after watching that trailer, that trailer was fire, and I'm really looking forward to it at this point.
Yeah, it is an unusual move for them to release it all at once. Um, there are some Netflix shows where that works out well. Netflix releasing all their shows at once started this trend where it started these water cooler debates is kind of how they're referred to, where they release it all, say, like on a Sunday night, and then Monday morning, everyone at work at the water cooler is talking about, did you watch that show? I mean, I watched like all episodes this weekend. Or they'll release on a Friday. People will binge it over the weekend. And by the Monday at work, they're like, hey, let's talk about, that show that came out. I watched the whole thing this weekend.
House of Cards was like, for me personally, House of Cards about 10 years ago was the first one that I really, really got into in that manner because it would drop like on a Thursday, Friday, and my girlfriend at the time, her and I would stay up, till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning watching these House of Cards episodes.
Appointment TV is still important.
Concur. One of the more important shows recently, as an example, is House of the Dragon. People were waiting for House of the Dragon to talk about it on the next day. The Mandalorian is another one of those shows like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
both those shows were excellent.
What's going on, Chad? Is Lily Stone?
Alfred Wood is Lily Stone as rocket scientist in Star Trek First Contact.
I had no independent recollection of that.
She wasn't really a rocket scientist as much as she was kind of a scavenger who was friends with the rocket scientist Zephyr Cochrane. I'm a Star Trek guy. You can't, I'm a Star Trek guy, hardcore. Got some new picks for T'Challa recast. One is Sope Dirisu from Gangs of London. The other is Abukar Salim from Raised by Wolves and Assassin's Creed Origins. You're speaking Marc's language.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Sope Dirisu, for the longest time, was my number 3. My man Damson Idris was my number 1. My number 2
was. He's not your number 1 anymore?
Damson Idris is my number 1.
Yeah.
Stephen James was my number 2. But Abubakar Salim has moved up to my number 2 spot with Stephen James at number 3 and Sope Dirisu at number 4. If you have not seen Gangs of London, Paul and I and our other boy, another Marc, we watched it during COVID in 2020 when it came out. Let me tell you something. Episode 1 It is John Wickian in its style, and I want to say the dude who created the Raid franchise is the one behind Gangs of London. And episode 1 is phenomenal. Now, season 2 was okay, but season 1 was great. So if you can find Gangs of London, highly, highly recommend it.
So let's talk about the other show that came out this week. Loki, season 2, episode 5.
Really, really liking Loki. Really like it. And I'm glad to see my boy, the Asian guy who just won an Oscar. What is my man's name?
Quinn. I can't pronounce his name.
Yeah. I'm glad to see that he's having a resurgence in his career after his Oscar win.
Yeah.
He, for a lot of people, he made his, I don't know if it was his debut, but he was in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
I think his debut actually in Stand By Me. No, it's not Stand By Me. I didn't mean to say that. Goonies. Was Goonies come out before the Indiana Jones?
No, I think Indiana Jones came out first.
And then Goonies? Okay.
Correct. And so, he was also in Encino Man. And what's crazy is both he and Brendan Fraser were in Encino Man. Both of them won Oscars last year. How crazy is that? But that aside, he had stepped away from Hollywood. Well, let me rephrase that. Hollywood has stepped away from him for a number of years, and he was doing, other things, maybe selling insurance or whatever. But then there was a movie called Everything Everywhere All at Once with the legendary Michelle Yeoh, which was basically a multiversal cross-universe storyline. And he played her husband, and he won an Oscar for that role. Because of that, because of the exposure, Hollywood has found him again, as Paul just said a moment ago, quoting a Jay-Z line, "Let me reintroduce myself." And so he's now playing this character. What was it? How do you say it? Aurora, not Aurora Borealis.
Ouroboros.
Ouroboros.
A snake that eats its own tail.
Its own tail, right? We've seen that image forever, and he is so I don't know this dude, but he just seems like a genuinely nice guy. Everything that you see about him. And the way that he plays this character makes you root for him. It makes you want him to succeed in any and everything that he does. Really, really liking this show. Obviously, Tom Hiddleston is doing a wonderful job. I wonder if he has to go to a chiropractor because every time he jumps between universes, he has to do that neck twist thing. Or
that's right. He does that thing where he flips his hair back.
Does like that, like
he's got one leg forward and one leg back.
Yeah.
He's like in a superhero pose. He's like doing lunges.
It's hilarious. Love Tom Hiddleston. What's he gonna what's her name? The black female. What's her name?
B-15?
Yeah. Wunmi Masaku. Now, I first discovered her, or I first became familiar with her in the classic Lovecraft Country. She was in that. And if she were to get into shape, she was one of my fan casts for Aurora Monroe Storm. Very beautiful woman, very talented. She actually starred with Sope Dirisu in a horror movie called His House on Netflix. So if you have access to Netflix, watch His House. She is an extremely good actress. Owen Wilson, great actor. What's the Hispanic dude's name? I don't.
He's Filipino.
Filipino.
I can't remember his name, but he's one of the voices on Star Trek Lower Decks.
Yes, he is. But I discovered him on the show called Tacoma FD, which is a comedy by the Broken Lizard Troupe, the guys who brought you Super Troopers and Beer Fest. So they have a series called Tacoma FD, which is basically about a fire department unit, and he's in it. So that's where I first saw him. But all that aside, this show is very extremely good. This particular episode I really liked. You got to see, this is going to be some spoilers. You got to see Loki time and universe skipping, and he gets to see where these people came from before they became members of the TVA. What's interesting is this whole series has been about the TVA, and it's associated obviously with Thor. The TVA made its first introduction in comic books in a Thor comic. And I've had that book for 30 years and nobody ever thought about it until they dug into the book. And that respect to those writers and creators behind the series, that they developed something that was just kind of like a one or a two off in the comic books and the source material, and developed this whole series around that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest criticism that I have for this latest phase of the Marvel universe, and we'll talk more about this a little bit later, but it was just incredibly disjointed and not as
Connected.
coherent as you had with the Infinity Saga. You know, this phase is supposed to center on the multiverse and ultimately leading up to Secret War, etc. But people still don't see the connection between all these various Marvel properties and that storyline. Loki is the key central figure in that whole storyline. And this particular episode really brought together some really high-minded science fiction concepts involving the multiverse and tried to make it understandable. I mean, I'm a sci-fi guy. I'm a hardcore sci-fi guy. And there are some concepts that the average moviegoer, probably just mainstream person, just would be like, that's too much. I can't understand it. It hurts my head to think about it. But they try to explain it in a way that makes sense. And I love the fact that they're very detail-oriented on the show. Everything that you see has a purpose for being there. Let me repeat that. Everything you see on this show literally has a purpose for being there. Even when you're looking at the backdrop and you see posters on the walls, or you see end credit scenes with little notes, everything is tied into something else. They're very, very highly detail oriented in the show, and they really put a lot of hard work and planning and thinking into the plot and the details of what's going on. And I appreciate that. There's a lot of Easter eggs. You can always sort of Google or YouTube, Easter eggs on each of these episodes. There's a lot. There's a lot of little references that people don't pick up on.
Heavy Spoilers and Screen Crush are two of the best YouTube channels out there for these breakdowns. And the gentleman's
New
name
Rockstars too isn't half bad.
Right. Eugene Cordero is that other gentleman's name, and as Paul said, he is of Filipino descent, but he is from Detroit, Michigan. And as I said, that's how I know him, is from Tacoma, FD. But he's doing a wonderful job. It's a really good show. Somebody on Twitter a couple of weeks ago indicated that they felt, and we'll talk about this, I think, later on, that Gen V on Amazon Prime, which is in the boys universe, is better than the entirety of the MCU's series. And at the time when that tweet was sent, I'm like, man, you're crazy. But I just watched the last episode of Gen V, which dropped this morning.
No spoiler. I haven't watched it yet. That's why I didn't bring it up.
I don't do spoilers, but Gen V is basically this series, which is in essence the X-Men or the New Mutants.
It's the New Mutants.
It's the New Mutants. Gen V is without a doubt better than the entirety of the MCU series, without question. It is extremely good. It deals with a lot of topics like mental health issues, body image issues. It is an extremely, extremely good series. So if you have not watched Gen V, highly recommend Gen V. But you got to watch The Boys, and The Boys is great.
The Boys is fantastic, which kind of leads to one of the things I want to talk to about is the MCU, right? The MCU in these last couple phases have been a mess. And they made announcements a few years ago about all these shows they're coming out with, and half of those shows are thrown to the wayside at this point. There's supposed to be a Wakanda series, there's supposed to be an Okoye series. Those, there's no traction on that whatsoever. It's a complete mess. There's no direction really as to what they're doing in this phase, and it's been tremendously over. People try to say, well, there's superhero fatigue. It's not. I disagree with that. I don't think there's superhero fatigue based on the quality that you see on shows as like Gen V or Invincible, which also dropped its first episode of season 2. It's not superhero fatigue. There's bad writing fatigue. There's directionless fatigue.
There's lack of cohesiveness, and that's one of the things in phases 1 through 3, up until the last Avengers movie, that we as fans of the property and comic book nerds specifically liked, is that you watch the movie and then you'd have 1 or 2 after credit scenes that led to the next movie,
right?
That all had a end point that we knew. Because after Avengers, the first Avengers movie in 2012, you had Thanos at the end of that movie, and ultimately where that was going. The issue with this particular phase, none of it knows. We as fans don't know where they're going. We know we've heard that we're going to lead into the Secret War, but none of what's been developed so far has shown us the roadmap on how we're going to get there.
Right.
And that's been the huge issue thus far. Also recast the Chop.
I love that. Yeah, man. There's just I really don't think there's superhero fatigue. I really just think it's a lack of imaginativity, creativity.
Are you looking forward to the Marvels?
I am, because my daughter's looking forward to it. She saw the trailer recently and was like, "Daddy, are we going to go see that? Can you take me to go see that?" I live for that. So the representation of 3 superheroines in a film, which is quite frankly unprecedented, is huge. And the fact that Monica Rambeau, who, if you're looking above me here, I got a poster here, right there. I'm a big Monica Rambeau fan. The fact that she's finally going to get a little bit of shine, even though she's not the main character.
She's the third of it.
I'm looking forward to that. And I think it's a pity that this movie is really being sabotaged by critics, and it hasn't even come out yet.
Right.
People just assume, oh, it's got women, so it's going to suck.
It's got minority women, so it's quote unquote woke, and that's bothersome.
It's woke. It's garbage. It's pandering.
I did not like the first Miss Marvel movie. I do not think, despite her Oscar win, that Brie Larson is a particularly good actress. More power to it.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, right. More power to the actress Brie Larson. She seems like a decent person. The only reason, in my humble opinion, that Captain Marvel made the type of money that it did is because it was sandwiched in between the Avengers movies. And a lot of people felt, like myself, that in order to understand what's going to happen in Avengers Endgame, you got to see this one that was sandwiched in between it. In this particular movie, I'm looking more forward to seeing the Marvels because of the fact that Photon and Miss Marvel are in it. You know what I'm saying? So
Eric Guap is correct.
I'm looking forward to it for that aspect alone. Now, not that it has some overriding end game, no pun intended, the way the other movies did, leading to Secret Wars or leading to some cohesive storyline. But just because it has, like you said, Monica and Miss Marvel in it, and because I saw the Miss Marvel show, I'm looking forward in that aspect. If this was just a Brie Larson driven series or movie, nah, I wouldn't be interested in it at all.
Right. And, I watched the Ms. Marvel television show with my daughter, and she loved it. She loved seeing a teenage superhero of color. She could identify with her. She's nerdy. My daughter could identify with that, and that's important to me. It's tremendously important to me. Being a girl dad has opened up my eyes into a whole other world of looking through things, that's important to young women, and having that positive imagery is tremendously important. You have 3 really strong women superheroes that aren't pandering with a bunch of salacious, images or what have you. That's groundbreaking, and it needs to be promoted more. And the trailers look fine. The trailer looks fine.
It's going to be a fun movie. It looks like it's going to be a lighthearted movie. I just hate the folks who are trying to sabotage it because it's quote unquote woke, because you've got a Black woman and a Muslim woman in it. And that's the only thing that they can say. They have no idea what the story is. They don't know, what they're going to be talking about. Just the fact that you see non-white people in it. So therefore it is woke. I remember when the last Jurassic Park movie came out, and you had DeWanda Wise was in one of the trailers, and somebody was, people were saying, "Oh my God, this is woke," because it's got a Black woman, and all she was a pilot. Nothing about her gender or ethnicity was pertinent to the story, but because they saw her ethnicity and her gender, it by definition then was woke. And it's just a shame that we live in such a society that is so racist and so misogynistic that this type of stuff continues and goes on. But,
absolutely. 1 in 100. Amir says, "What's really hurting the Marvels is women can't promote the movie right now. That really sucks. That young actress Iman would get the fans. Why can't they promote the movie? I don't understand.
The strike, the actor strike. They can't and talk about stuff.
It's still going on.
Yes. The writer strike is over, but the actor strike is still going on. So yes, that is absolutely correct. I forgot about that. People can't promote the movie like they would want to, and that's one of the reasons why Blue Beetle basically failed, is because the strike happened right before that movie dropped, and it was not a bad movie. It was a fun movie, but the actors could not go on talk shows to talk about it because of the strike, and it's unfortunate.
That's a damn shame.
Yeah.
So anything else we're watching?
Invincible season 2, episode 1.
Invincible. I didn't get to finish Invincible season 2, episode 1. I got about halfway, then I had to start the show.
Yeah.
But what I saw so far was brilliant. This is why, again, the whole superhero fatigue thing is BS.
It's not a thing.
What?
Superhero fatigue is not a thing.
Yeah, it's not a thing. I mean, we're fans. We want more superhero stuff. We just want it to be good.
Yeah.
And
it's good.
I tell you what, the Invincible thing made me think about something. DC excels at animation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Their animated properties are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best animated properties out there from DC.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly better than Marvel's.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think about the fact that some of the best stuff Marvel's done in the animated world was that What If series. That was really fantastic stuff.
And the Avengers, what did we say that series was called?
Avengers Assemble. That Black Panther series was fantastic.
Well, I mean, the whole series was called Avengers Assemble.
Right, Avengers Assemble.
Yeah. The Avengers
series was good.
And the Doctor Strange.
I really wonder, and I've been putting a lot of thought into this. And if you watch the lives I've been doing, I've been bringing this up a lot. The entry point for kids getting into comics, for me getting into comics, for many of my generation in getting into comics, was cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons.
Yep.
Super Friends, Hanna-Barbera, the Marvel Superhero Hour.
I don't remember that.
That was the old 1960s cartoons with Thor, Submariner,
for me personally,
Spider-Man, Captain America, etc. Hulk.
Submariner, Captain America.
That was my entry point to made me want to buy comics. And kids are more focused on video games and stuff like that now, but still, Where are the animated features to get people in the comics? I came home tonight from work, and my daughter's on the couch watching television. I'm trying to see what she's watching. You know what she's watching? Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. She loves that movie. She loves that movie. And it makes me think, like, maybe Marvel is focusing on the wrong things. If they're concerned about budgets and actors aging out of their roles, go to animated features. You can make that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse film was so incredibly well done. Why can't they focus on doing more animated feature films? Animated properties.
Probably because it doesn't make as much money. Well, let me rephrase that. It doesn't make as much money as the live action, because when you think about it, Captain Marvel made over $1 billion. Black Panther 1 made over $1 billion, and go on and so forth. Spider-Man, the last Spider-Man movie, made over $1 billion. So that's why they don't.
How much money did Spider-Man across the universe make?
It made a lot, but it didn't make $1 billion. I'll tell you that. But the last live action Spider-Man movie did. Paul mentioned how DC does animation well. Between 2012 and 2022, there are probably no less than 20 animated movies that came out. And they were all, for the most part, for me, excellent movies. I know that some people didn't like the Green Lantern animated movies, but I enjoyed all 3 of them that have come out. But Wonder Woman that came out in 2010, 11, or 12, whatever it was phenomenal. The whole Batman, Superman, Public Enemies, and what was it, Doom, Apocalypse War, or something like that. Great. All of those shows were great. The New 52 animated DC cartoons, Throne of Atlantis, all of those great animated movies. But they don't make the type of money that the live action stuff that Marvel has done make. That's why they don't focus on it, I'm sure.
Across the Spider-Verse, it cost $100 million to make. So that's half the budget of the average Marvel movie.
And what did it make?
And it world box office made $683 million.
Okay. So you got to throw in another 50 to 100 million for promotion.
For all intents and purposes, it was a success.
Without question, it was a success.
It was a resounding success.
It quote unquote probably made. That's the issue.
It cost $100 billion to make it. Domestic wise, it made $380 million, $381 million. International, it made $301 million.
So as I said, it cost $100 million to make. You got to throw another 50 to 100 for promotion. So you're looking at a $200 million movie that made 600. It was not a flop. It was a success. But when you compare that, say, for example, to the first Black Panther movie that cost what, $200 million to make, and then it earned $1.5 billion. So it was a rousing success. So that's what they're looking at. They're looking at the bottom line. And a lot of people are turned off by animated stories, which doesn't make sense to me.
That's why I bring up that Across the Spider-Verse film, because although some people may be turned off by animated films, that movie changed the game. Because it made people realize you can have an animated film that's just as good as any Marvel.
We're into this stuff.
I'm not talking. No. I disagree. It's not just nerds. As I said, I came home. My daughter is watching this film. She's not us.
By a nerd. She's raised by a nerd, dude.
No, it has nothing to do with that. There's a lot of kids. There's a lot of people that watch that film and really genuinely enjoyed the film. My wife watches the film and she enjoyed it.
Okay, but she's married to a nerd. My point is this.
No.
You're not a nerd, and she's not married to you. She's in this universe because of you. What I'm saying is that there are people out there who are not immersed in nerd culture because they don't have a husband, wife, daughter who's into that type of stuff. So because it's animated, they may not want to go see it, despite the story, despite how good it may be.
Yeah. Amir says the MCU really needs to focus on the writer's room. The actors are important, but if that story is trash, the actors won't be able to save it. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
They got to make better stories. People aren't fatigued on superhero films. They're fatigued on trash. I don't think it's due to race and gender. It's due to the fact that Disney already butchered those three characters.
They didn't trash Monica. They didn't trash Kamala. No, I disagree with that.
Tarot Destroyer. I don't know. That's just BS. Eric says DC's anime movies are the best. They're absolutely the best. Although, after watching the first half of the Invincible season 2, episode 1, Amazon's giving them a run for their money because that Invincible is incredible.
They've only got 2.5 series. They've got what is that? The Boys. What is that animated? The 4 or 5 animated shows called Boys.
They made some Boys spin-off shows that were animated.
Right, but it has a specific name. But at the end,
I know what you're talking about. I just don't remember what it's called.
Right. So at the end of the day,
Amazon
has Invincible and that Boys, but that's not enough to overcome what DC has done over the past 15, 20 years.
Hey, shout out to Bird Forever. Thank you very much, sir.
Aquaman.
We appreciate the support. We appreciate the support tremendously. And you did.
I was really bored at the first Aquaman movie. I actually fell asleep in it. I did not think it was that good. It paid the money that it did because of Jason Momoa and women like seeing him with his shirt off. He's not a strong actor. But after seeing the trailer for the Aquaman 2, I am personally looking forward to it. So I do think that Aquaman 2 will probably make more money than the Marvels.
The trailer looked good.
Yeah, it really did.
Anime movies are evergreen. Just look at the 1940 Superman cartoon. It's still good 80. That's true. Have you ever watched the old 1940s Superman cartoons, animated features?
Yeah, I got them saved on YouTube, actually.
You can see them on YouTube. Those are really well done.
What was the guy's name? The animator's name? Sam?
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Notice how DC's animated are true on the source material and the live action is not. And that's why I was bringing this up. Thank you for bringing that up, Eric. The thing with the reason I brought up this whole conversation is I'm watching this Invincible show, and I haven't read a lot of Invincible, but what little I've read, I saw a lot of that in the cartoon, in the animated feature. The thing with animated features is you don't have the restrictions of budgetary constraints that you have with these live action properties. And if you're making a television series rather than a movie, you can literally do, as we talked about with the Black Panther animated series, the motion comic, you can literally recreate every issue as one episode. You don't have those restrictions. And you can remain more true to the source material because there's no, well, we can't do that because of CGI constraints, or we can't afford that, or time constraints, or you don't have to worry about that with animated features. So you get a better quality for the comic fans, for the comic purist. You get a better product with the animated features than you do with the live action.
Let me say this. I've not read not one issue of Invincible. I am an Invincible animated fan because of the story, because of the voice acting, how it's put together. For me, with somebody with no knowledge of it, that's what's important in that specific property. And if you do a story well, then people will come and watch it. Hulk versus was really good. I'm thinking about Hulk versus Wolverine when
that Hulk versus Wolverine was awesome.
That was really good. So it was Hulk versus Thor, Hulk versus Daredevil. The Doctor Strange cartoon was very good.
Yes,
the Thor cartoon was pretty good, but that's about the extent of it outside of Spider-Man series or whatever. But yeah.
Eric says, I have the whole Invincible series. I really enjoy the Amazon series. It's about 80% true to the source, and I love that.
Yeah. For those of us who've never read an issue of the comic book, which I have not. I am immersed in the story. It is very extremely well done. Shout
Right.
out to Kripke and Kirkman and all the people behind that animated series. It's
I
very
really would love to see Marvel focus more on animated features. I really truly believe that's kind of something they really need to explore more of and make it tied to the MCU like they did with that What If series.
the What If series was good, and the new one's coming out.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, dude, we've been on for almost 2.5 hours.
Yep.
Wanted to thank everybody. As I said before, if you have not already done so, please like this video if you enjoyed the content. Please certainly subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell. It costs you nothing. These things I'm asking you to do. And it means to us. It helps us to keep us doing what we're doing. And it costs you nothing. Just hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video on your social media. Whatever platform you're on, just go ahead and share the video so other people can watch us too. It would tremendously help us out, and we would really appreciate it.
All right. I should be anything dropping next week that you can think of? Any books dropping next week?
Books? Now, you see, I'm going to tell you the same thing I'm going to tell the audience out there. The Black Comic Lords has a listing. We have an account on League of Comic Geek website. If you ever want to know what's coming out next week that you should take a look at, things that we think you should take a look at, check that list. I'm going to start texting you, Mark, the pull list that we have.
Is there a way that you can put that link like in the comments or something? So people
Say again?
Is there any way that you can put that link in the comments so people
You're absolutely correct. I can. Hold on. Let me do that right now. Did you just do that?
I did.
You were waiting for that moment to do that.
I was. So while Paul was doing that, I went and bought this podcast bundle off of Temu. If you have not purchased anything from Temu, listen to me. Temu is that it's the Walmart of online shopping. So if Amazon is like Neiman Marcus, Temu is like Walmart, and I highly recommend. I have purchased so many knickknacks, bric-a-bracs off of Temu. Highly recommend it. I've bought cufflinks. I've bought just all kinds of stuff. Temu. And I mentioned
it pops up in my feed. I'm gonna go ahead and sign up for it because I see a lot of cool stuff.
I mentioned it because I bought this podcast bundle, because we do this every week, and I wanted to, do things differently. So they had this podcast bundle in there. I almost bought one off of Amazon. It was like $100 and something. The one I got off of Temu was like $30, and it came with this little, thing, and it has a microphone that I have, right here, and it's kind of cool. And this little box has all kinds of little voice things, and it's for $30. It's cool.
You're like a kid with a new toy.
I am. Yeah.
You recently had a birthday. You were out of the country. I was going to send you something. I haven't sent it, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to send you. Unless you want to be surprised.
I do want to be surprised.
All right, I won't show you that.
Cool.
I'll put it back over here.
Awesome.
All right, let me get off because you're getting excessive with that.
Yeah.
How do you guys like the King Spawn? I have every issue, but not read any of them. I don't read King Spawn.
Yeah, I don't read any of that.
I don't read King Spawn. For James Tomlinson, who's one of our Black Comic Lords people, says it's a fantastic series. Great series, well written.
Art is cool.
Artist incredible, and he can't beat the price. Todd McFarlane, he's a fan of the fans, so I give props to him for keeping the price of his comics still under $3.
Oh, nice.
I respect that. So with that, I guess we are out.
Thanks, you guys, for joining. I'll see you guys next time.
You could be anywhere in the world on this Friday night, but you're here with us. And we appreciate that. Peace.